Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 Origin Continent based on novel. So let's start. The four super limit level exchanged glances. To save their lives, they had to let their armies share some of the burden. If the four armies focus on escaping without harming the cultivators, given Luofong's coordination with the heaven and earth array, he might break us down one by one and eliminate us all. The four super limit level were very aware of this point. Even with 4 against 1, they were already at a disadvantage, and this was without the formation being fully set up. With the formation's support, even if the 4 of them focused solely on survival, they wouldn't last long. Once the 4 armies start slaughtering the cultivators, their destructive power will far exceed ours, forcing Luofong to save the cultivators. They understood well the mindset of their armies. The Divine Emperor Perfection level members of the 4 armies were each leaders of their respective units, following the kings in the hope of capturing the city. From the moment we entered the city, I've wanted to slaughter. But the king forced us to first destroy the core area, and now we've ended up in defeat. We've held back for so long, it's time to kill to our heart's content. Maybe if we kill enough cultivators, we can regain our freedom. We'll retreat while slaughtering, but the retreat speed will be slowed by 30 to 40%, and the casualties will be severe. The king wants us to slaughter to lure the cultivators. In the 9 Rivers Sacred Realm, we've always barely survived. With freedom right before us, why not fight for it? This might be our only chance to break through a cultivator city. We'll regret it if we don't slaughter this time. The Divine Emperor Perfection level members communicated their thoughts rapidly. Within a breath's time, the Divine Emperor Perfection level members of the 4 armies quickly reached a consensus. They all decided to retreat while slaughtering. Though it would affect their escape speed, it also gave them hope for freedom. Even if they couldn't regain their freedom, their bloodlines might advance further. In fact, when they first entered the city, these armies already wanted to slaughter. But back then, according to the king's orders, they couldn't waste any time and aimed to destroy the core area. They even wanted to completely annihilate Luofong's avatar. Only as the situation continued to evolve did they end up in this current state. At this moment, the 4 armies, after being subtly guided by the 4 super limit level, all chose the same path. Retreat. Retreat. The 4 armies all fled towards the city outskirts along the nearest path. But as the mighty armies fled, they suddenly dropped their flying altitude and simultaneously focused on mass attacks. Thunder, various flames, black wind, curse killings, poisons, and other forces descended, breaking through the obstruction of the cyan black mist and forcibly affecting numerous cave mansions below. Luofong's heaven and earth array was a large-scale suppression and erosion. These armies, concentrating their power, naturally could break the cyan black mist. No. The cultivators in the cave mansions, already anxious while watching the high-altitude battle, became extremely tense seeing a vast low-level primordial life army directly overhead. But when the powers indeed swept down, what they felt inside was only despair. The cyan black mist had already exerted itself to block, but it could only block part of the power, with the remaining terrifying power still sweeping over them. The path of cultivation is full of various calamities. Cultivators fight and kill each other, become entrapped in bottlenecks while comprehending the Great Tao, risk crises while hunting low-level primordial life. Now, it's a heaven-sent catastrophe, the army breaking through the city, said a middle-aged man sitting there, looking up at the descending power. He was a cultivator, who had come from countless worlds, and this was his true body, having no avatars. But, this path of cultivation, it attracts me too much. The middle-aged man smiled. From the lowest level of a weak world, he had become infatuated with cultivation as soon as he came into contact with it. Training the physical body, training the mind, practicing swordsmanship. He evolved continuously, encountered more, and even outlived an entire cycle of his hometown world. He had traveled to other worlds too, entered even higher-level worlds. He kept gaining more cultivation knowledge and constantly strengthened himself. On this path, I, Kang Yu, have no regrets. Under the terrifying power, the middle-aged man was instantly reduced to dust. Even at the moment of becoming dust, he faced it with a smile. Boom. Enormous power swept over numerous cave mansions, killing all the cultivators within. At this moment, within Yulon City, the four armies retreated simultaneously. While fleeing, they sent out part of their forces to slaughter. Their powers varied, cutting off every possibility of the cultivators' escape. The cultivators, who could reach the 9 rivers sacred realm, each had experiences that could be described as legendary. But at this moment, in the face of this calamity, one by one, they were annihilated. Such is the path of cultivation. Besides conflicts and fighting among companions, besides facing bottlenecks in cultivation, one might also encounter external cataclysms. For example, a source world getting devoured, a holy realm being completely obliterated, even entire worlds dedicated to training divine emperors being wiped out. In the face of such cataclysms, individuals are powerless. The 4 low-level primordial life armies have started slaughtering. The array of elders watched with changing expressions. As the city lord, Luofong keenly sensed the situation throughout the city. At the moment the city fell, Luofong had already foreseen this scene. If the defensive system of Yulon City had stopped all the low-level primordial life armies outside, the losses within the city would have been negligible. But the city fell. The low-level primordial life army entered, and once they started slaughtering, the cultivators naturally died in droves. Earlier, the low-level primordial life focused on winning, aiming to quickly kill their way to the core area. But now, everything had changed. All elders, go all out and suppress the 4 armies. Luofong commanded from afar. Yes. Nearly 200 elders each deployed their formations, in coordination with Luofong's heaven and earth array, to suppress the 4 armies together. Forcing those armies to allocate more power to self-protection, leaving less power for slaughtering. Whoosh! Luofong's strongest avatar ignored the 4 super limit level and headed straight for the nearest army. Luofong is no longer paying attention to us. His other avatars are coming. The 4 super limit level watched as Luofong's other avatars stationed in the core area, a total of 10 avatars, moved through the gaps in the heaven and earth, heading towards them. Luofong's ordinary avatars, though somewhat weaker than the super limit level, were now supported by the formation. 10 avatars were enough to entangle the 4 super limit level. Escape. Quickly escape. The 4 super limit level didn't dare to hesitate, and immediately joined forces to fly away into the distance. Luofong did not push too hard. If the 4 super limit level fought to the death, madly slaughtering, the cultivators would suffer massive casualties too. This army consisted of over 600 divine emperor perfection level, more than 8,000 late-stage divine emperors, and some weaker low-level primordial life forms. While dealing with Luofong's heaven and earth array, and the formations of the elders, they also allocated part of their power to slaughter. Whoosh! Very suddenly. Out of the cyan-black mist appeared a huge furry claw, its power terrifying, piercing through the layered defenses of the army in an instant. Not good. The members of the army were filled with shock and anger. The enormous claw pierced through the defensive layers, sweeping through a large number of late-stage divine emperors and some divine emperor perfection levels, causing numerous casualties. Repel it. It's Luofong's secret treasure claw, repel it. The army moved and suppressed the enormous claw. Protect the entire army. More layers of defense tightly protected the whole army. They quickly assessed the damage from this claw strike. 19 leader level have died, along with 126 core lineages. The entire army was a bit agitated. Their defenses, initially to resist the formations, now had to deal with this targeted strike. Bear in mind that the explosive power of Luofeng's strongest avatar exceeded that of the 4 super limit level, with an instantaneous burst of power comparable to the combined attack of over 100 Divine Emperor perfection level. Luofeng's strength is too formidable. We cannot possibly defend against his attacks everywhere, it's impossible. And there's the formation aiding him. With combined attacks from nearly 200 elder formations and the heaven and earth array, the burden was already substantial. Moreover, Luofeng's concealed presence, aided by the formation, made it impossible for them to pinpoint his location. Whoosh! Another claw, from the midsection of the army, caused over 100 more deaths. The army mainly consisted of leader level and core members, as the vast majority was summoned from other areas of the Nine Rivers Sacred Realm. The lower and middle tiers had not been significantly gathered. Whoosh! 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 A massive furry claw attacked from different positions within the cyan black mist. We can't determine his location. He's everywhere. The entire army was in panic. In reality, Luofeng's strongest avatar had merged into the endless blood sea, integrating with the heaven and earth array, almost covering half of the army's area. The range was so vast that, through causality sensing, it felt like Luofeng was everywhere around them. Run, run, run. Quickly escape. Under the repeated attacks of the enormous claw, this army couldn't spare any effort to slaughter cultivators, and immediately began to flee frantically. They fled at full speed, protecting themselves layer upon layer. How could their escape speed possibly match Luofeng's pursuit speed? Luofeng delivered several more claws. Having killed over 200 Divine Emperor perfection level and 1,500 late-stage Divine Emperors, Luofeng stopped. If he continued, aided by the formation, he could completely wipe out this army, ensuring none escaped. But while dealing with this army, the other 3 armies were still slaughtering the cultivators. Whoosh! Luofeng's strongest avatar, moving through the gaps in the heaven and earth, headed towards another army. Luofeng is no longer attacking us. The heavily damaged army noticed the disappearance of the enormous claw and the cessation of attacks. But after losing a third of their forces, all that remained was panic. While resisting the combined attacks of the heaven and earth array and the elder formations, members were continuously dying. We can't attract Luofeng back again. If he comes again, we'll be completely finished. Quick! After enduring dozens of claw strikes, the army had no more illusions and made a full-speed escape. Ha ha ha, we escaped, we escaped. The 4 super limit level rushed out of Yulon City, leaving the range of Luofeng's heaven and earth array and the elder formations. There were some troops outside the city initially to prevent the cultivators from escaping. But with the defeat, the external low-level primordial life armies had already fled en masse. Luckily, the 4 armies slaughtered, forcing Luofeng to stop them. The 4 super limit level, after escaping Yulon City, didn't slow down and continued flying away. After fleeing far enough, they dispersed and escaped separately, concealing their auras, dispersing and fleeing. The 4 super limit level fled further and further from Yulon City, planning to leave this area entirely and escape to other regions of the Nine Rivers Sacred Realm. Escape. On the city wall stood 4 Luofeng avatars, each with the biomimetic destruction eye on their foreheads. Do you think you can escape? The 4 Luofeng avatars maintained a sufficient distance from the 4 super limit level, tracking them with the biomimetic destruction eye, following them from afar. These 4 super limit level, once the army inside the city was dealt with, Luofeng would naturally take care of them one by one. The first low-level primordial life army, heavily damaged by Luofong, fled with all its might, while the other three armies fled while relentlessly massacring. Everywhere they passed, vast areas of cave mansions turned into rubble, and the cultivators perished without the strength to resist. When Senior Yuan and the others created the Nine Rivers Sacred Realm, they made the overall power of the low-level primordial life far superior to the cultivators to exert enough pressure on them, forcing the cultivators to only hide within the cities. When the city falls, slaughter is what awaits. Damn it. Luofeng's eyes were cold as he walked in the gaps between heaven and earth, already nearing the Second Army. The Second Army comprised over 800 Divine Emperor Perfection level beings and 12,000 late-stage Divine Emperors, making it the strongest of the four armies that invaded the city. Even under the combined assault of Luofeng's formation and the array of elders, this army sustained relatively minor losses. Disperse. Luofeng's heart stirred, causing the dark green fog within Yulon City to become illusory and transparent, no longer obscuring vision, and allowing the four armies to observe each other from a distance. The formation fog has thinned. We can see the other three armies. At this moment, they realized that, apart from the first army which was fleeing frantically, the flight speed of the other three armies had noticeably slowed down as they continued to massacre the cultivators distractedly. Surrounding the strongest Second Army, the illusory dark green fog enveloped and shrouded it, with the array of elders besieging it. Suddenly, a massive furry claw, without warning, extended from the void. The layers of protection covering the vast army had limited defense capabilities at specific points. This giant claw instantly pierced through the layers of protective energy at the attacked points, sweeping through numerous low-level primordial life forms. These low-level primordial life forms, whether at the late-stage Divine Emperor or Divine Emperor Perfection levels, were torn apart and their life cores shattered upon contact with the claw. The shattered bodies were also naturally collected within the space contained in the claw. Repel it. The entire army was in a panic, hurriedly combining their efforts to repel the furry claw. 17 leader-level beings and 213 core clan members were killed. The Second Army immediately assessed their losses, feeling alarmed. It was known that the curse killings of the Heaven and Earth Array could not threaten the leader-level beings, and were mainly targeted at the core clan members, taking 1 or 2 lives each time. Although the deaths added pressure on the army, it was not panicking yet. But now, even the leaders were dying in batches. The leader-level beings were the ruling core of the entire army, and losing so many at once brought panic to everyone. It's Luofeng's secret treasure claw. We can't determine Luofeng's exact position. This secret treasure claw possesses terrifying power and mysterious techniques, which we cannot capture. Furthermore, it's indestructible, we can only barely repel it. Although the army comprised over 800 low-level primordial life forms at the Divine Emperor Perfection level with various means, they were helpless against Luofong. See a thOverfire.et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After all, in terms of power, the terrifying body driven by the undying heart deploying the palm world already possessed formidable strength. Luofong further employed the secret patterns within the palm world to execute his techniques. In terms of technique realm, it surpassed the pure late-stage Divine Emperor life and death Tao, making the claw's methods seem too mysterious and elusive to these low-level primordial life forms relying solely on their bloodline. Boom. The giant claw attacked unannounced from the rear of the army, killing over 200 more members, including more than 10 leader-level beings. Boom. 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 One swipe after another, Luofong didn't stop. With the support of the Heavenly Earth Formation and the array of elders, this army could not do anything to Luofong, helplessly watching as their numbers were continuously massacred with growing casualties. If this continues, the entire army might not escape. The Third and Fourth Armies in the distance saw the scene of Luofong repeatedly attacking the Second Army through the now transparent dark green fog. This sight made them tremble in fear. If Luofong wipes out that army, he will surely come for us next. At his killing speed, an army won't last long. Let's flee quickly. We must escape with all our might. We can't be distracted by massacres anymore, we must focus entirely on escaping at full speed. Otherwise, the entire army will be annihilated. The Third and Fourth Armies changed their mindset. Previously, they believed that with the army's combined power, they could still escape while distractedly massacring. Most would survive, especially the leader-level beings. So they were willing to take the risk. But now, if they don't escape, it's a certain death. The Third and Fourth Armies quickly reached a consensus within a breath's time: flee immediately. We've killed many too. Let's escape now. If we die here, what good is bloodline evolution? Although they had massacred for too short a time to regain their freedom, some members who had slain many still hoped for bloodline evolution. But the prerequisite was to survive until the moment of receiving the gift. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two armies stopped their massacre and began to flee with all their might. The surrounding cultivators, who had given in to despair, were astonished to witness this. We survived. These low-level primordial life armies stopped their massacre and fled with all their might. The cultivators realized that whatever made the low-level primordial life forms cease their massacre must be connected to the most powerful presence in Yulon City. The two armies ceased their massacre. Luofong observed this from afar, knowing that he made the dark green fog become illusory to scare the remaining two armies into witnessing the Second Army's miserable state, hoping they would flee quickly. Perhaps more low-level primordial life forms might escape the city. But at the very least, more cultivators would survive. Rumble tilde. Luofong continued his frenzied onslaught on the Second Army, and with the Third and Fourth Armies fleeing, he naturally focused all his power on this Second Army. The massive claw attacked time and again. Luofong, stop. If you do not stop, giving us no vitality, we would rather perish and massacre more cultivators. We will massacre without hesitation. Before our entire army is wiped out, we can at least slaughter tens of millions of cultivators. Voices came from all directions. At the same time, the Second Army ceased their escape, displaying a posture ready for all-out massacre. Luofong frowned at this sight, the massive claw he extended also retracting. To completely annihilate this army will take considerable time. They indeed could massacre over 10 million cultivators during that time. Luofong understood that their threat was credible. Seeing the giant claw retract, the low-level primordial life forms of the Second Army breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, it stopped. They had deterred this Luofong Divine Emperor with their mutual destruction stance. We will no longer massacre the cultivators, and you must not attack us. A leader of the Second Army said. The formation of Yulon City will continue to suppress you, but I can stop the secret treasure attacks, said Luofong. All right. We believe you. Their only choice was to believe. Fast. The Second Army also fled with all their might, at this moment still having over 500 Divine Emperor perfection level beings and over 7,000 late-stage Divine Emperors, already greatly weakened. At this moment, all four armies in Yulon City fled with all their might, daring not to massacre anymore. Luofong's avatars stood above Yulon City, keeping their eyes on the four armies. The strength of City Lord Luofong can suppress everything in the Nine Rivers Sacred Realm. The elders felt reassured. The cultivators of the Nine Rivers Sacred Realm were vastly inferior to those of the Dark Sacred Realm. Luofong's power, even at the pinnacle level in the Dark Sacred Realm, was naturally invincible here. Over 16 million cultivators died in Yulon City. As City Lord, Luofong instantly assessed the casualties. The early infiltration of low-level primordial life forms caused minor injuries and fatalities. The main damage came from the 4 Armies Massacre during their escape. Even though Luofong fully suppressed them, there were still heavy casualties. With so many cultivators dead, do you still wish to leave alive? Luofong's eyes turned icy. At this moment, at the core formation layer of Yulon City, Luofong was meticulously engraving the second layer of the formation, nearing completion. After the city was breached, and Luofong broke through to the late-stage Divine Emperor Life and Death Dao, he began setting up the first layer. As the low-level primordial life armies were about to reach the core area, he finished the first layer. Then, the 4 armies started their retreat, slowing down due to their massacre and escape, unable to exit Yulon City. Luofong soon completed the second layer. Thus, the completion of the second layer naturally combined with the first, forming a unified whole. It's done. With a single thought, Luofong caused the original heaven and earth grand formation of Yulon City to gradually become chaotic, the dark green fog transforming into chaos fog, enveloping and suppressing the 4 armies. Not good. The fleeing 4 armies felt the significantly increased power of the chaos fog, quickly corroding their layers of protection, with invisible assaults added. The formation's power has increased. It's much stronger. Hold steady. They defended with all their might, but the invisible assaults continuously claimed many members. Almost every breath saw dozens fall. How could the formation become so terrifying? At this moment, they couldn't even muster a mutual destruction stance. Resisting the formation already drained them, any lapse meant instant submersion by the chaos fog. Hold on. These low-level primordial life forms' defense layers constantly showed flaws under the chaos fog's invasion and continuous deaths. Each flaw allowed the fog to penetrate deeper, killing more within the army. Quick, rush out. The first army, having fled first with all their might, neared the city walls. They made desperate efforts, sustaining casualties every moment, finally breaching Yulon City's perimeter. Upon breaching, they were overjoyed. We survived. This army was ecstatic. At this point, barely over 300 Divine Emperor Perfection level beings and over 4,000 late-stage Divine Emperors remained, nearly half surviving. Outside the city, lacking the formation's assistance, Luofong dared not face an entire army. We were the first to suffer from Luofong's onslaught, yet we survived in the end. The first army's members were dazed, seeing the other 3 armies still suffering casualties through the illusory chaos fog. But the other 3 armies still had a considerable distance to the city outskirts. They can't escape. The low-level primordial life forms quickly calculated. Let's go. There was no hesitation. The heavily damaged First Army quickly fled Yulon City. The remaining Second, Third, and Fourth Armies, however, failed to escape. This video will end here.